Hello, and welcome to episode 67 of TBR, the To Be Read podcast, where we talk about the books we love and the topics that interest us. My name is Patrick Stemp, and as always, I have Michael Ronn and Jamie Maltman here with me. How you guys doing?
Hey Patrick, happy Tuesday.
Aha. And tonight we're going to be talking about, I called the show Haters Gonna Rate. We're going to talk about basically one-star reviews of some of our favorite books and some other just, really popular books out there in the market, and talk a little bit about something we've talked about before, just the fact that, just because you love something and just because a lot of people love something doesn't mean that there aren't others out there who it didn't resonate with, and that should be some fun. And we're going to start with our weekly roundtable and talk about what we've been reading. How about you go first, Jamie?
Sure. So I dove right into book 4 of A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin. So that's A Feast for Crows, and I think I'm about 290 pages in after a week. So I'm motoring along like it's pretty much a book read. Sorry?
I said that's the epilogue.
No. That's about a third, almost a third of this one. It's only like 900 pages. So.
Oh, is that all?
Only 900 pages.
Yeah. The really crazy thing on this one, though, is I think the first 70 pages were all by viewpoints that haven't appeared as viewpoint characters so far in the first 3 books. So some of the characters are, they were secondary characters, now they get a viewpoint, and other ones were maybe off to the side somewhere you kind of knew who they were, and then one of them is like completely out of nowhere. Actually, like one was by reference. So it's just kind of a, whoa, it was a little bit off-putting, but it's it's.
Was it surprising though? I mean, if he kills off all of his viewpoint characters, he's got to add some new ones.
Well, there's still a bunch. It's true that he has to add some every book, and he kind of leads with that usually. So far, that's been kind of part of the pattern. But this one, the other thing he did was he didn't even call them by name. He called them by title, or like a descriptive thing about them for sort of like a couple of series of them that are roles as opposed to the character name, because it's always been character name. Like the very first one was Bran. It's Brandon, or Eddard or whoever. So, but this one it's like the something knight, or the something I don't know. It just names like that. So that was kind of different. But anyway, we'll see how it goes. Story's still interesting to me. And then with my son, I've been continuing to read that Bone: The Quest for the Spark by Tom Snagosky. So that's in the bone world, and yes, there are rat creatures, and yes, there are Veniyan, and yes, there are bone people, like not that family, but bone people as well. And it's neat. It's like way subsequent to the stories of Bone, and the people of Boneville. Most of them, brought the guys came back, and they were returning heroes and had all these exciting stories. But like the Boneville Historical Society thought they were full of crap, and like was basically disbelieving everything to do with the valley. So there's this whole angle to it. So that's kind of neat. But anyway, so it's lots of stuff going on. It's like another epic story that's sort of not exactly related, but intertwines with the mythology and stuff. So my son's enjoying it, and I think we're about halfway through. And it's like 200 and something pages. So and it's like only a picture like every chapter. So it's a big read, and we're making like almost a chapter a night, reading it to him before bed. So. And that's pretty much my weekend reading.
Okay. Michael, how about you?
Yeah, I had a slow week, but it's not because I didn't read. It's because I read one book pretty much the whole week. The first book I read was Prosperity for Writers by Honore Corder. She was a guest on SPP and the Selmer Book Show, and really it's more of a mindset book, right? That the reason you're failing, or the reason that you're not successful, is because you don't think that you can be successful, right? So it's tackling a lot of limiting beliefs that authors might have. A lot of it was very familiar to me. I'm one that tries to always get rid of my limiting beliefs and just try to adopt a good mindset about being an indie author. But that being said, I thought it was well written, and I thought that it was definitely worth the money that I paid for it. So I would recommend it to beginning authors. I think beginning authors would get the most value out of a book like this. And what I like about it is that it's very genuine. The advice is sound, and she knows what she's talking about. I mean, she's built a business for 25 years. So that's the first book I read. And then the second book I read was the most exciting book I'll read all year, and that is the it's the Global Ebook Report, the 2015 edition. And this book is literally the thickest, most number-oriented book I've ever read in my life. But I like it. Basically, it covers the ebook revolution and the ebook markets around the world. So it talks about what's going on in the United States with ebook sales kind of going flat, and with Amazon and what they're doing, and with the big publishers and raising their prices and all of that stuff, right? But it also talks about what's happening in the UK, talks about Mexico, talks about Russia, Germany, all the emerging markets, and what's actually happening there. And it's very detailed, like play by play, what's happening. So like when people talk about, France isn't really friendly to ebooks, they hate Amazon. Well, this book explains why, right? I thought it was really informative and really interesting. I'm reading it as research for my indie author State of the Union. So it's important for me to know what's going on in all the global markets so that I can inform indie authors what's going on. So I would recommend it to anyone who wants to learn what's going on in the world, and if you've got books in translation, it might be helpful to you. If not, just read my book, The Indie Author State of the Union, and I'll summarize some of it for you. But
Germany's one of the biggest emerging markets, isn't it? Especially for English books.
It is, and it's funny because they said that the German ebook sales in 2014 actually kind of stabilized, which most people would say, oh, it's exploding over there. Well, it is, but it's not growing as fast as it was, and that's kind of what was happening in the United States, right, a couple of years ago. So Germany might be joining the ranks of the United States and the United Kingdom and all those countries, but the country that excites me the most is Mexico. There's some really interesting stuff happening in Mexico right now that I think is going to make it pretty big here in the next couple of years. But
does the book go into the VAT at all, and what
it does.
That changed? Does it? Okay.
It does. I haven't gotten to the UK section yet, so I'm not sure how deeply they go into it, because this covers 2014. So the VAT laws didn't really go into effect until the beginning of this year. So I'm not sure how much of an impact there'll be in this one, but next year probably for sure.
Yeah, and that's the value-added tax for anybody who doesn't know.
Yep, value-added tax law. So,
okay.
Yeah, that's my week. What about you, Patrick?
So I started with a short story called Unconditional, A Tale of the Zombie Apocalypse by Chris Porteau. And this is basically the zombie apocalypse told through the eyes of the family dog. Specifically sort of the dog that belongs to the young boy in the family. And it's a short story. It's pretty dark, and I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's a KU read, but if you like the zombie apocalypse and you're looking for something a little bit different, I enjoyed it. It's a quick read, and it's pretty cool. And then I read The Day the Crayons Came Home by Drew Daywalt. So this is some reading that I do for our Frog Burps line. So it's a children's book, and it's the sequel to a book that came out, I think, in 2013, The Day the Crayons Quit. And if you have, young kids, these books are really cool. The first one is centers around the main character, Duncan, who goes to color with his crayons one day, and all he finds in the box instead of his crayons are a bunch of letters from the crayons saying, "We quit," and all of the colors sort of have left him a little letter explaining why they're leaving. Pink is upset because she never gets used. Blue is sick and tired of being used for water all the time, and they all have different complaints. In this one, The Day the Crayons Came Home, he finds a series of postcards from all of his crayons that kind of ran away from home and saying, come get us. Some of them didn't make it any further than the couch. Some of them have been off on wild adventures. And anyway, they're really cute books, and if you have young kids, they're a lot of fun.
I just requested that at my library because my little son's name is Duncan, so that's even better.
Oh, there you go. That's perfect. And they're really the use or lack thereof of the different colors is really true. Like that there's certain colors that white never gets used.
Yeah.
Green gets worn down to a little nub if you've got a boy who likes dinosaurs, or Orange and yellow are constantly fighting over who should be used to color the sun. They're really cute. And then after last week's conversation about our favorite fantasy reads, I actually got a recommendation through Goodreads from one of our listeners, Amber. So if you're out there, Amber, thank you very much. She recommended that I read a book by Brandon Sanderson called Steelheart. And we mentioned Brandon Sanderson quite a bit last week because he, obviously he writes a lot of fantasy. And this is actually a YA
superhero-ish,
series.
right?
Yeah, exactly. So right up my alley.
Yeah.
So she knew that, and again, I thank her a great deal for that recommendation. I'm loving it. About a quarter of the way through, it sucked me right in, and it takes place in a world where there are they're called epics. And all of these people, I don't know yet how they got their superpowers, but they're all epic, and every single one of them, as far as I can tell, is evil. And they've taken over the world, and they basically do whatever the heck they want. They just kill people randomly, and so the story is about a boy who saw something, dealt with one of these epics briefly when he was 8 years old, and then the story picks up 10 years later. He's 18 and out on his own and trying to connect with this group of people who they're called the Reckoners, who make it their job to try to take out some of these epics, try to find out what their weaknesses are and exploit them so that they can kill them. And so he's trying to join this group and get revenge for something that happened to him at the very beginning of the book. And it's really good. I'm enjoying it a lot, and I'll talk about it more next week because it's sucked me in enough that I know I'll be done it this weekend for sure.
Awesome.
I just requested that too.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I think and I think Amber may have said this when she recommended it. I believe the first 2 books in the series are out. I don't think the third one is out yet, but I think it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah, I think something like that. I'm just from listening to them talk about it. I'm writing excuses at different times. I think that sounds about right.
Yeah. So that's I'm really enjoying that one. So with that, we will talk about some more of the books that we love and the people that hate them. So
not the people that hate them.
Well, no, we're not.
Okay, right.
Just negative reviews, and something we try to do on the show is stay positive. We don't we understand that just because we didn't like a book doesn't mean that somebody else didn't. We try not to, we may joke around a bit about Divergent or, Twilight or whatever, but not too much because honestly, I've never read Twilight, so I don't have any right to talk about it too much. And, we want to stay positive, and we certainly would never trash an author, which some reviewers will do. We try to talk about the work and not the artist. So we thought it would be interesting to take a look at some of our favorite books, or just books in general that are extremely popular, and just kind of talk about negative reviews or bad reviews. And I'm surprised that we don't see more either 5s or 1s on the review sites. And typically, I think you guys are probably like me. We see most of our reviews on Amazon or Goodreads. Probably more Amazon than anywhere else.
Yeah.
You do see a lot of 3s and 4s and 2s, but you kind of go for the 5s and the 1s, right? Because it seems to me like in order to take the time to go and review something, you had to either just love it or you just despised it. And if I despise something, I'm just going to forget about it. I'm not going to review it.
Yeah, same here.
Because what's the point?
You don't seem to be the average citizen of the Amazon review community, then.
No, and that's
well, yeah. Because if everyone thought that way, then we wouldn't have 1-star reviews, right?
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because we always hear too. They say when they're talking about books that you don't want nothing but 5s. You want some 1-star reviews because it's in quotes, social proof. Which I agree that is the culture. I don't like it. Because there's the culture of negativity. People just like to go online and complain about things that they didn't like. And I noticed I guess there's some review types that I noticed. I was trying to sort of categorize them. So I've seen a lot of books. So there's books like Harry Potter. There's a ton of negative reviews on Harry Potter. Now, like The Martian and other books like that, I'm seeing books that have 16,000 reviews, and 1% of them are negative, 1 or 2%. And so some of the things that I saw were, there's the misstarred reviews. There's a lot of those where it says, I really enjoyed this book, 1 star.
Those are the best.
And those, typically those are, I call them drive-bys.
It's number 1. No, it's like, this book is number 1.
So I think those are kind of the drive-by reviews where somebody just goes in. I don't think it defaults to 1 star or anything like that, but they just click it. I loved this book, and they move on. And then of course they get comments from other people saying, "Why did you give it 1 star? You know, it sounds like you enjoyed it." Other reviews that I've seen are sort of content unrelated, I would say, where they loved the book, but what they're actually reviewing is the packaging. You see this a lot with movies or other products too, where they say
crappy ebook
I'm
implementations.
I'm not reviewing the book. I'm reviewing the fact that when I got it in the mail, there was a page torn out of it, or which seems to me like you would be better off dealt with through customer service than a negative review.
But on the other hand, I'd say that, like, it's funny, as I was going through looking for some good examples of stuff, I did find a significant number saying, like, you know, I love this book, but this audiobook version is completely horrible, or I love this book, but this particular reprint of it has paper, you know, really thin paper that tears easily and was crumpled when it came in the mail and stuff like that. So there's both sides, right? Like, some is my particular issue, but there is the macro issue. This implementation is horrible. That's important and useful as a product review as opposed to a content review.
Well, and for Harry Potter, for example, specifically the first book, it sounds to me like the Harry Potter books that they were available to purchase through Amazon a couple years ago, but they weren't actually sold through Amazon. Sounds like there was a third-party site called Pottermore, and a lot of the negative reviews on Harry Potter are from people 2 or 3 years ago saying, you know, love Harry Potter, but Pottermore is just terrible. It sucks that you have to go through this third-party site, and they say that the books that will work on Kindle, but they actually don't. So you see a lot. So you see a ton of that too. And anyway.
Yeah, I guess another kind of review that I noticed with that too is like with Jurassic Park that I just read. A lot of the 1 star reviews there bash the formatting of the book and the typos. So almost all the 1 star reviews that I read, no, I love the book. The book is fantastic, but the 1 star is because I found over 400 typos.
You know, the OCR,
it's a professional book, you know.
The OCR conversion of the print book into an ebook that was a quarter-assed job by the publishing house was horrible. And again, so that's and that's the thing. Amazon blurs that line between product review and content review, right? So it's still a product at the end of the day that you're rating. So.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them too, and Amazon could do a better job of some things. I did see, so regarding language, I saw 2 types of reviews for language. One was, this is a terrible translation, and that was for I think it was on the English copy of Harry Potter, but they were talking about a Spanish translation. The other thing is saw negative reviews where, and I almost did this with the Brandon Sanderson book, where it was like, there was a copy that was like $9.99, and then there was one that was $8.99. I'm like, well, of course I'm going to buy the $8.99 one. It's $1 cheaper. Just about to click that buy now button. Wait, it's Spanish, and you only know that. They don't say Steelheart and then in brackets Spanish version. You have to look down into the description where it says, number of pages, who the publisher is, and then, oh, this is, then you might notice that it's Spanish. I could see being really upset in not knowing that, so then, of course, I went back and bought the right one. They could do a better job with that, too, I think, like you're saying, where it'd be interesting to see them do what you're saying, is to break out the reviews to say whether this is a review of the content or the the physical copy or whatever.
Yeah, and Amazon has those new review options that they launched over the summer where it's more granular, kind of like the Audible reviews, if you guys have ever looked at those, where they kind of guide you through and say, how was the author's writing style? How was the story? How was the narrator?
Right.
I think they're starting to go that way. I think they're testing it to see how that works. So
I can see that
specifically.
That really makes sense for Audible, because you do have so many sort of hands in the pot. Like, there's the author who told the story, and then there's the narrator who read the story. So that is important, I think, to differentiate. But I don't care about the fact that the CD case came, so this is one of the examples of the types of reviews that I look for, because some of these negative reviews do save you. Like, reviews I do think are a great thing, where I'll look at the reviews for Friends. I've been wanting to buy the box set of the old show. And I don't care about a review that says, oh, when it came in the mail, the plastic things were broken and the discs were loose. But I do care about the review that says every episode of this particular version of the show is missing 30 seconds of every episode because of copyright problems with the music that was included in the episode, or just to keep the length short. And I've seen, that's one of the reasons I haven't bought that series, because that's one of the negative reviews or complaints that I've seen. Those kinds of things are extremely useful, especially if you're going to spend a couple $100 on a TV show.
Oh yeah, you want the whole thing, and you want it to be the best quality. Yeah.
Yep.
I guess I've read quite a few one-star reviews where maybe they compared a book to a book that I didn't like, and thought, okay, well, I don't like book A, so why would I buy this one, right? And who knows if that's the right decision in the end, but spend your money on something else.
So one of the I grabbed one review that I thought I would mention, and for one of my favorite books. And I don't know if I can read this without giving away what it is, but let's see.
Right.
I don't see anything. So, this book, according to this reviewer, was largely unreadable, poorly written, boring, cliched characters. Need I go on? Wait for the movie. I probably just gave it away there. I got about halfway through this, scratching my head why people liked it. I put it down, and we'll see the movie when it comes out. At least the ending will be a surprise. Maybe I'm not enough of a science buff to have enjoyed this, but I do like good writing and strong character development. This book had neither. If you're dying to read this, save yourself a few hours and wait until the movie comes out. Even if the movie is a complete dog, it will be better than this.
That would be The Martian.
Yes, that would be The Martian. And there are plenty, The Martian has over 16,000 reviews, but it still has, I think, a 4.75 or greater stars on it. And this review kind of jumped out at me because it kind of hit a few things for me. One, you can literally, if you're reading negative reviews, or positive and negative, you'll read one review that says these characters are so real and three-dimensional, and they had real goals and an arc, and then the next review you read is 1 star and it says these characters are cardboard cutouts, they didn't seem real at all. It all comes, I think, we all have different experiences, and we've all read different things and consumed different things, and it's just funny to see, everybody gets something different out of it. And specifically with this review, what jumped out at me was they were really kind of trashing that character development, and I realized then that that's really not what this book is, because both of you have read it now at this point, right? Mm-hmm. And Mark Watney in this story is exactly who he needs to be to deal with the events in this story. It's not about him developing as a character, because it's not that kind of book. It's a guy who knows what he's talking about, put into a really tough situation, and using the skills that he has to get out of it. Now, so again, we talk about the mice quotient. This book is solid. It's an E, right? It's just all about the events. It's not about his character, although it is partially about his character, because his sense of humor is one of the things that helped him get through. Mm-hmm. But so that was, I was kind of thinking, would the book have been better if he had some sort of fatal flaw that he had to overcome in order to survive on Mars for all that time? And maybe, I don't know.
It'd be an entirely different book,
right? Who's to say? And so obviously that was missing for some people, and a lot of people didn't care.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Yeah, that one man. It just goes back to the one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? The thing that 1 star reviewer hates could be something that you absolutely love about a book, But I have a review that is kind of the absence of all of that. It kind of stuck out at me. It's from a book that I really enjoy, and the review says, this is probably the worst book ever. Not only is it horrible, the plot is awful. They are wasting their time burning other books when this is the book they should be burning. Would not recommend this to anyone. I'm sure you
Can I
guys can
guess?
guess what. Yeah.
I can't. I want to guess only because it was, I know, your favorite book and one that I was looking at negative reviews, and I was going to say Treasure Island.
No, it's actually
No.
Fahrenheit 451.
Oh, I should have guessed with burning books.
Burning
Yeah.
books. And that review is in all lowercase, by the way, with bad punctuation. Like, that's a, like, you talk about that, Patrick, like, it's something that, the one you mentioned, it was a thoughtful review, in a way, right? They articulated why they didn't like the book. You know,
Mhm.
It might not be for you, but you can see why they didn't like it, right? This is just a flat-out ad hominem attack, right? It has not. To me, this review adds no value to the product page.
You know what you might be
there's-
seeing there? Because I noticed this, I mentioned Treasure Island.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to books like Fahrenheit 451, and so I noticed this with Treasure Island, based on the language and some of the things that I was seeing in the reviews, I think there's a lot of school-aged children reviewing these
Mhm.
books because they were forced to read them. I saw some comments like, Reddit, I had to do this for a project and it's
Yeah.
terrible. It was so boring. So I wouldn't be surprised if it would be the same like for that. And I also, because I think one of the things that originally put the idea for this episode in my head was I was poking around on IMDb and looking at The Princess Bride and reading the negative reviews of that. People hate that movie. Some
Yeah.
people.
The Princess
That's
Bride?
another one.
Mhm.
And
Wow.
what I think's happening there is it's people who never saw the movie years ago and they've been hearing about it and it's a cult classic and everybody loves this movie and they watch it for whatever reason. They don't get it. A lot of the reviews I saw there were, oh my God, the special effects are terrible. Like the ROUSs look like they're made of rubber, and like, well, yeah, they are. The movie was made like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a guy in a rubber suit that they throw into the scene. So that I think that too, like things that just aren't carrying over, especially with language.
Yeah.
A lot of that too with Treasure Island. People were saying like the language is difficult.
To understand. And
Yep.
yeah, there's and too, with that, there's a certain amount of puffery that I notice in reviews like that, where reviewers are trying to be funny or trying to be witty to make
Mhm.
themselves look good to the people that are reading their reviews.
To the in crowd.
Oh, you should
Yeah.
see some of the reviews.
Right.
You should see some of the other reviews on The Martian, where they're like,
Oh, yeah.
the science is wrong, and one person was saying it's a well-known fact that the atmosphere on Mars is only 1% of what it is on Earth, and therefore a windstorm could not, And somebody else chimes in and says, yeah, Andy Weir has publicly stated that he knows that, and he did it specifically to.
Right.
Because you needed something to
Enhance
start
the
the story.
Yeah,
You gotta-
exactly.
Yeah, but other people are trying to undo his math as far as like how many potatoes he would have been able to grow in a short amount of time, and it's funny. At least people are engaged, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the worst thing for a book or an author would be to be ignored or unknown. So, at least people are reading his book.
Yeah, well, it's like, what do you want? Do you want to be obscure, or do you want to be talked about and ripped and universally acclaimed, right?
Here's
Speaking, go ahead.
Okay, no, I was going to go into another sort of tangent where I wanted to look at some of the a few of the fantasy novels that I really liked, and the neat thing that I saw is I actually saw like dots connecting between them where I'll show you the example. So like here's one review where I'll read sort of the first paragraph, the last paragraph. So it's, I hope this review will appear early on in someone's search for an honest opinion of this series. It's actually horrible. I'm an avid reader of speculative fiction and love philosophical forays into deeper questions of existence. This series, however, fails miserably at constructing either a coherent story, a single likable character, philosophical significance, or even an enjoyable read. Then they've got like long chapters about that, even saying like, oh, even the sex scenes aren't very good, and blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, it's like, if you like deep ideas for fiction, then you could go to these philosophical books like this. Or if you prefer complicated, engrossing speculative fiction, try Dune, Malazan Book of the Fallen, Song of Ice and Fire, Wheel of Time, and other books. Okay, so it's like, so this is so horrible, but these other books are great, right? So that sort of flow to a lot of these fantasy ones. This particular one is the R. Scott Bakker's Prince of Nothing series, so the Darkness That Comes Before, that I really liked quite a lot, but I know a lot of people hate it. And like, just for example, this one, 12% of the reviews are 1 star. That's a lot of reviews on. And I know this one's not that many. This was only, I guess it's only a few hundred reviews on that one. But
so I was just rechecking. We talked about universal acclaim or universal hate, and we can talk about this one a little bit more in a minute. But the Chuck Wendig's new book, where he was hired by Disney to write I think it's the first book in a trilogy in the Star Wars universe. It's called Aftermath, The Force Awakens, and talk about unit. So you mentioned, what did you say, 12%? This book has a 41% 1-star reviews right now.
Whoa.
It's sitting at 2.5 stars out of 5 with 723 reviews. The reviews are just scathing, and some people are saying it's because he included some gay characters in the book.
That doesn't account for all of it. There's some
that's
for
what he's saying, and that's what some other people are saying. But when I read the reviews, I didn't see one negative review that said that. Every single review was about the style of the writing. He does have a very specific, choppy style of writing in this book. A lot of one-word sentences, and it didn't work for a lot of people. They hated it because it's a different style of writing, and it just kind of flopped.
Yeah, I mean, he's up against huge intellectual property that everyone in the world knows. I mean,
yep.
I definitely don't envy him. I mean, it could have been an awesome book, and I still think he could have got the same response.
I think he took, going into a series like that, he took some chances. Kudos to him. Took some chances, not just with including gay characters, but with the way he wrote it, the language. People don't like that they're wiping out the extended universe or whatever. So he had a lot going against him walking in the door, and maybe shouldn't have taken so many chances. So.
Oh, he's getting the reviews that he'll have to live with, right?
Another one I saw some, one of our favorite books as a community and a group would be Stephen King's On Writing. And the negative reviews there seem to be that it's not about writing. I read this book because I wanted to get some writing advice from Stephen King, but it's all just about him being, a drug addict and getting hit by a car. And the writing advice it is pretty slim in that book, but that's not really what we read it for. I know we're all fans of that book, right?
Yeah.
Old Man's War. That's another book. Have you guys read that one by John Scalzi?
Yeah.
I know you did, Michael. You read it recently, right? That's another one. I was looking at some negative reviews, and that's I think it's that one. I think just comes down to this person says it's an amazing story with great characters, and somebody else says that they're cardboard cutout, and he just ripped this story off from a Heinlein book, which I think he's after the fact acknowledged. Not that he ripped it off, but that he unknowingly reused a lot of his ideas. So
I was going to go sort of to show my from book to book. So it's the first person was reading that one, like within these fantasy ones, just within the community, just show how different tastes were. There's a 1-star review saying, this is awful, but I love Tolkien and I love George R. R. Martin and I love Malazan Book of the Fallen. So I went to this other one for the Malazan Book of the Fallen, and this person's like, this is their 1-star review of that, Gardens of the Moon, the start of that series, that someone else was saying, this is the contrast to the crap that I'm talking about here. So this one's like, I'm not among the uninitiated when it comes to epic fantasy, having read the works of Brooks, Jordan, Goodkind, Nix, Martin, etc. I really enjoyed their works, so when I heard Erickson's books were comparable in quality to Martin's Song of Ice and Fire, I was intrigued and I thought I'd see what all the praise was about. I've never read such a poorly written book in my entire life ever. If someone gave me this book and told me a drunk high schooler wrote it, I would believe them. I would not have believed it was a published work. And then they go into tons of reasons. So it's like, from there to there. And then they're like, well, so you'd want to do George R. R. Martin instead. But then you go to George R. R. Martin and you'll get other people that'll, there's a ton of 1-star reviews there. Like at least it's only 4% there, but still, of 7,700 reviews, that's still a lot of 1-star reviews. Like it's really interesting to see what these people are like. They raise up one side and they're panning this one, but the next person's raising up some of the same ones, but panning that one that was mentioned highly by the other person, and then they're it goes in a circle like that.
Do you ever look into the reviewer? Because I found myself doing that quite a bit, where
I do that sometimes.
and specifically because I hadn't seen this before, but when I was looking at The Martian, there's got to be a dozen at least books that are called The Martian, and then in the top it says, an analysis and review or
Cliff
whatever,
notes or
synopsis and
whatever. Yeah.
review, or The Martian trivia. But now the covers are not done in such a way that if you had ever seen the book that you would mistake it. But there are people who have accidentally bought those books thinking it was The Martian, only to find out that it's not. They're by these in quotes authors called like a book a day. They've done they've done it for Pride and Prejudice. Yes, the Gold Rush authors. And then, but some of those books have, 26 reviews and 14 of them are positive. And so I was looking through some of the positive reviews because those are the ones that you question. And they're all from, none of them are Amazon verified purchases. They're all from Doug,
$5 reviews,
Katie, Frank. And when you right click on them and look at the things that they have reviewed, I noticed that quite a few of them had reviewed that book and one other random fantasy book, all the same fantasy books. So yeah, it's a service or something that they've paid for. And these sock puppets or whatever they are have reviewed this book and this other book that some author of this fantasy series, looks like a vampire, supernatural, erotica thing maybe, paid for a block of reviews from the same site or the same service. So I wonder if anybody. Yeah. So I know we've seen positive sock puppet reviews. I wonder if anybody's gone on any of those services and said, "I want to buy 100 negative reviews for against this other author that I don't for $5 or whatever."
Kind of like a literary review hitman, right? Go destroy this guy's novel.
There are those negative reviews too, where we've seen. People will go and trash an author's work by reviewing it because of something they've done outside of the book. Like maybe they wrote a blog post that resonated poorly, said something stupid in an interview that set people off all of a sudden, or they trashed another author, so all that author's fans will go on Amazon and one-star the book.
There's some with the I disbelieve your science kind of, that happens sometimes for some of the nonfiction stuff too, where people haven't read it, but they're like, this contradicts what I'm thinking on, whatever this issue, global warming or different things like that. And they're like, they go in one star. They get legions of people to come in and do that.
Well, and you do see people who said, I haven't read this book, 1 star.
Yeah.
And some people think it's because they're, well, we've talked about this before too, where you might do something like that in order to train Amazon, because as a reader, you don't care. If you're just a straight-up reader, you don't care what happens on the back end as far as the author is concerned and things like that. Some people may be trying to train Amazon or Goodreads like you do Netflix. So one of the first things you want to do with Netflix is go on the website and 1 star everything that you hate or that you don't want to see, to train it to show you the stuff that you do like, right? So if you don't have kids, you might go in and 1 star all the children's stuff, so it just stop showing it to you. I wonder how, and Kobo, whatever service you're looking at, you 5-star the stuff you like that you read maybe 10 years ago, and you might 1-star the books that you remember reading that you didn't like, so that they won't email you recommendations, because you have to train it both ways, right? I don't know that there's a lot of that going on, but there might be some of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, like the different dynamics of a product page. Right. I mean, every review, you never know what that reviewer is coming to the table with, or what they're thinking that day,
or sometimes
it's surprising that we don't see more negative reviews, because there's only one reason to review something positively: you liked it. Yeah. But there are a whole lot of reasons to review something negatively. All the things that we've talked about, that the packaging, the content, something completely unrelated. I
was going to give you a couple of people coming with some context, sort of in contrast. Like one of the books I mentioned on the show that I really like, or the series, is Colleen McCullough's Founders of Rome series. So the first book of that, I was looking at some of the reviews, and like there's one guy, very poor, not recommended at all, starts out with, as an ardent student of ancient Rome and reader of historical fiction with shelves full of books on Rome. So, absolute expert in this stuff. His wife bought it for him, and he's like, this is a great period, this is a great thing. But she's not interested in that. She's telling the story of, the most historical moments go by in a sentence or two, while she dwells endlessly on romances, marriages, parties, food, and most of all, sex. Characteristic of her focus is a lengthy description of the Roman toga, and she even said in her notes that she researched it so long to see whether men wore underwear underneath it. Anyway, so he's going off on all that stuff and saying how horrible it is from that perspective. Then, like 2 reviews down, there's another 1-star saying, okay, I consider myself to be a very academic person, and I generally have a high tolerance level for thick reads, but not for this one. I think the problem is I don't have much of a background in ancient Roman history, so this book was over my head. There's too much historical detail, and it's too detailed and and you're like, what? Like it's like exactly the opposite almost.
Well, one's saying too much of the wrong kind of detail.
Mm-hmm. Right. The other one's saying too much detail. Period.
I think it's just, I don't know. It's funny.
One of my favorite
and that's one of the problems you see sometimes. I can't remember what it's called. I think there is probably a name for it. And if you think of it, let me know. Where the author is kind of like, look, I spent 6 months researching this shit. You're darn well gonna listen to me talk about it for 15 pages.
It's funny because I don't know.
Yeah.
What's that?
Anyway, I'm just saying, that's like, I understand that, and that in her copious historical notes, like it's like a novel of its own at the end of the book. But the story really flows as far as I'm concerned. But the other people are like stilted and horrible and this and that and whatever.
Jack White did a good job with that with the Camelot series, and I think if I remember correctly, he put some of that stuff in the, not a prologue even, but just like a little essay at the beginning of the book, more so that the reader would have an understanding of when he says I'm talking about a legion or all these different sort of the way the Roman armies break down. So he did that more to give them a background. Skip it if you want because you might already know it, rather than spending pages and pages of story time telling the reader how it works.
But how about this review of the first book of his series?
Skystone?
Yeah. This book is an utter disappointment. I'm actually surprised at how good it's rated here. Very poorly written with an unengaging story that doesn't really get you anywhere. The characters are shallow and stereotypical, and it's full of weird sex scenes that seem to be written from an adolescent point of view. If you're interested in a realistic approach to King Arthur, read Cornwell's, blah, blah, blah. Here's the other one that's better. Like, there's a lot of that in the 1-star dynamic. Anyway, I just thought that was fun. But another type you get is, we were talking a bit about some of the agenda ones. I looked up just some of the graphic novels that I'd read recently, and the Kazukibuishi, the Amulet ones. Mm-hmm. Again, agenda one, but it's stay away, don't read. Stunned by reviews of this book. Demonic worship and demon activity read by our kids? Is that a good idea? Seems like common sense to me what the answer is to that question. Are we that blinded today or just refuse to believe?
You guys
and
saw
people are like,
that,
thank you for this review. Someone gave this book to my daughter, and I'm so glad I read this review, so now I can not let her read it.
There's some of that with Harry Potter, too.
Oh,
right.
No, not some of it. Tons of it with Harry Potter. It's ridiculous. But, yeah, one of my favorite review lines ever, it's on a totally random note. I had this clipped on my Evernote. It's, my girlfriend gave me this book for Christmas, and I love her a little less now because I read that one.
What's that for?
You told us that.
I don't even remember. I fell out of my chair. I just had to.
And we'll wrap it up soon. We're coming up on an hour, but one of the thoughts I had too was like, that again, that whole culture of negativity. But you think back to the days of like the movie reviews. I don't know if you guys used to watch like Roger Ebert. On TV, Siskel and Ebert. The worst thing that Ebert ever could have done for a movie he hated, like say he hated Titanic, would be to not talk about it. Just pretend it doesn't exist, right? Because even negativity sometimes, wow, people hate this, I kind of want to read it, right? I checked out the sample for the Chuck Wendig book. It's getting so much hate, I kind of wanted to see what it was all about. But professional reviewers like that, I suppose they probably don't have a choice, right? Because everybody's talking about Titanic, so they have to. And I'm not saying he hated Titanic. I'm just saying it's a big movie that you either loved or you hated. Right. he probably loved it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think the moral of the story here from all three of us is that if you don't like a book, the life is short. There are plenty of other books out there that you can read. Why be so negative, right?
Why put so much energy into it? Like that's the thing. Some of these one-star reviews that are like 5 pages long of text, like.
It's like some people are get personally offended that the book exists, or
No,
that
that other people like it.
that too.
I think that's really what they're offended about.
And what kills me is that a
like,
lot of those are authors who are writing those 5-page reviews, and it's like, well, shouldn't you be writing 5 pages of fiction or nonfiction? Why do you have to waste your energy on this?
Yeah, like they being just the reviewers, some people, like are offended that how can you like this? What are you, stupid? Like, and those reviews you kind of just have
Shake
to kind
your
of
head.
gloss over. Yep.
Yeah.
I tend to I don't spend a whole lot of time with reviews before I read a book. I might see if it's generally, just kind of the overall rating, because there have been times where I made the mistake of looking at reviews before I read a book, caught a couple of the negative ones, and it turned me off.
Yep.
Or
irritating spoilers is the other side of it.
Yeah, and knowing that a lot of the books that I love get some of that hate, it would be a shame to have not read, Good Omens. Good Omens gets a ton of hate. People who are saying, especially like, it's not funny at all. It's marketed as hilarious, but it's not. That's another tricky one, right? Is humor. Some people, comedy and humor. There's a huge divide there between what some people. Some people think Monty Python are geniuses, and other people think they're morons. So yeah, Good Omens is another one that got a lot of hate. Not a lot. If you say, wow, there's 200 negative reviews here, okay, but it's got 20,000 positive reviews. So let me see. I don't think I had any other comments. You guys?
No.
I would just
other than keep it positive. The world has plenty of negative people.
Spread the love.
Be positive with the reviews.
What I would say is the power of all this stuff is any author who is out there, invariably you will get negative reviews. And whenever you do, go read the reviews, the negative reviews of books you love, and it'll make you feel a lot better because, these people much more in the public eye than you are getting reamed out and their work destroyed and people personally attacking them. So.
And they're okay.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, for sure. So we will wrap it up with that. We do not, as of yet, have a topic for next week, so you tune in to find out what that's going to be all about. And as always, we really appreciate any ratings or reviews you'd like to put up on the iTunes for us there. And have a great week.
Happy reading, everybody.
Take care, guys.